First of all, what's RAM?
RAM is Random Acts of Marketing, which is then abbreviated RAM, which can then be pronounced RAM. And it is symbolized by the RAM emoji. But random acts of marketing are just like when you're doing every request thrown at you, checklist marketing, just everything without necessarily like strategy or an idea of how it's going to help you win or if it makes sense for your company. You're just doing all the things. Like you're doing the billboards, you're doing the, random request, random campaign, random trade show that someone asked you to do, just with kind of reckless abandon. I actually used to have it on my wall, and then my partner made me take it down. She was like, it's weird to have your own frameworks on your wall in your office. And I was like, yeah, but like, it's better than like weird, than like personal stuff. So she made me take it down, but it's like the RAM in a no sign. So it's not up anymore. Else I could just be like, it's that, which would have been a good kind of cool maybe, but not really, because then my own frameworks are still on my own wall. But anyway, that's what it is. And it's kind of like everything I write about is essentially like, how do you avoid doing RAM?
I told CJ we were going to talk about RAM today, and he got really excited because he thought we were talking about cars. There's one other framework I wanted to ask about you. What's fuel and what's the engine?
Yeah, this is probably the other like underlying framework to all of MKT1 or Market One. You can say either. It's a bad name. Stuck with it. Don't take the vowels out of your name. Not a good idea.
It's like every SaaS company in 2021.
This is not what you asked me, but the story is that I was actually advising with a friend of mine, Kathleen, who's co-founder of Market One and is now a investor at Pear Ventures. But she and I were just advising companies together, and we're like, we need a name. And it was just like a working name, because I actually use MKT as like the abbreviation for marketing, like in projects and stuff. Like I'll just do like MKT this when I was leading teams. And so we just like went with that. And it was never intended to be this like, newsletter thing. And the point is that fuel and engine is just the basic way that I explain what marketing does. I think people get really bogged down in what does a product marketer do and what does a content person do and what's the difference, especially what's a growth marketer, especially non-marketers, so founders and other people in the company kind of get stuck in that. And I think just having a better shared language for what it exactly is that marketing does is needed. So I use fuel and engine. So fuel is all the things that you create. It's therefore the content, the copy, the messaging, the design, the creative assets, all of that. And the engine is how you distribute those things. So it's all of your channels and targeting, you just distribute it. And you have to have both fuel and engine to succeed at marketing. And most companies like over-index in one direction. So they have a really strong engine. Classic example is like you're sending tons of outbound emails, but they have no fuel. So those outbound emails say nothing, add no value, aren't relevant at all, and just say like, book a meeting with me or some stupid thing about like my, cousin's brother went to the same college as you. And that's not fuel. So that's like too much engine, not enough fuel. And then too much fuel, a lot of startups have this too, where they've made all of this content, or maybe they even have like a podcast, and then they don't have a way to distribute it. So just no one sees it at all. And so you have to have these things in balance, and you have to also have them match your audience. So you need the right fuel and the right engine for your audience and also for each other. So sometimes people make the wrong fuel for the channels they're using. Like they're doing a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn, but most of their content is like ebooks. Like that's not, I guess it could work with paid, but I'm just picking on
This
ebooks.
is like
but
2008 marketing.
I just like to use things that people hate because it makes the frameworks even more salient,
I personally love the fuel versus engine analogy because I feel like I go into a marketing org and they're always over-indexed on one or the other, and it's kind of unpredictable which, but they're almost never in balance. And so that one was like, this is pure brilliance.
It also swings back and forth, and that's okay. So I tell people when they're thinking about hiring, whether it's the first marketer or your 27th, like, where are you out of balance? Like, where's the bigger problem right now? So if a founder is like already made a bunch of, is sort of a thought leader, has a bunch of, opinions, like maybe you don't need the marketer that really indexes on that. You need an engine and, vice versa. Or if you're at 26 people hiring the 27th, like maybe you've hired a bunch of, product marketers in a row and you really have your ICP and positioning and messaging all nailed down, but you don't have any way to get it out, get it out there. So maybe it's demand gen growth. So it works for lots of reasons, for explaining marketing, for figuring out hiring, for figuring out where to focus, to figuring out why nothing's working, like all of those things.
So if anyone's listening here, if you're trying to diagnose a marketing problem, two places to look is that how much RAM do you have going on? And is it a fuel or an engine problem?
Ali and the team at Tabs are building something that directly addresses one of the biggest headaches I see finance teams deal with today: pulling data from your ERP, your CRM, your FP&A tools, and your usage systems and actually making it all work together. If you're running usage-based pricing or complex contracts, you already know how this usually plays out. Contracts live in one system, usage data lives somewhere else, billing happens in another tool. RevRec gets layered on top at month end, and finance ends up just reconciling everything by hand to close the books. This is exactly the problem Tabs was built to solve. Tabs is an AI-native revenue platform built for controllers and CFOs. It brings together data from your ERP, CRM, and real product usage into a single system of record. From there, it automates billing, collections, and revenue recognition without finance having to duct tape workflows together every month. If usage-based revenue is core to your business, this is the future of how billing and RevRec get done. Go check them out at tabs.com/run. That's tabs.com/run.